It's 11 a.m. here in Seoul. I'm Yoon Jung-min at the Arirang News Center. We're breaking into our regular programming to bring you a live briefing from the South Korean health authorities on the coronavirus outbreak. In just a few moments, we will cut into the briefing at Sejong Government Complex with simultaneous interpretation in English. Today, Yoon Tae-ho, overall officer from the Central Disaster Management Headquarters, will be sharing the latest figures and updates on the COVID-19 situation in Korea. So let's go over to the press briefing room as they are just about to start.
손영래 전략기획반장, 정충현 대국민지원반장, 김현준 보건복지부 장애인 정책국장이 배석했습니다.
We also have sign language translation available. First of all, here is Mr. Yoon Tae-ho for the explanation on the COVID-19 response here in the country. Let us now begin our regular briefing for July 10th. That is July 10th for July 10th, Friday. As of today midnight, today we have 22 new local infections and 23 new imported cases. The total number of accumulated cases now stands at 13,338, while a total of 985 people are in quarantine undergoing treatment. Yesterday we had one more fatality and the death toll now stands at 288. I extend my deepest condolences to the deceased and the members of the bereaved family. This morning, the KCC held a meeting presided over by Prime Minister Chung Se-kyun, and we touched upon issues of the intensified quarantine measures for the imported cases, as well as those for those who are on self-quarantine. And he also mentioned that with the prolonged infection outbreak, many of the public are feeling a great fear against the virus. However, they are having ease of the quarantine measures on a daily basis. And starting from this weekend, churches will be mandated to comply with core quarantine measures. He also said that this is adding increased burden on the majority of churches and believers who are voluntarily taking part in the quarantine, and he also asked for continued cooperation and participation by the religious circles. And in relation to the latest increase in the number of imported cases, we have revised some of our intensified quarantine measures. And with the global pandemic still lingering on, we are seeing an increase in the number of imported cases. All of the foreign entry are mandated to have 2 weeks of self-quarantine either at their own places or at a temporary shelter place. And upon entry, they are also tested as well. And therefore, we have a very low risk of these imported cases spreading to community cases. However, as they need isolation and treatment, they also have a possibility of posing great burden on the medical capacity of the Republic of Korea. And starting from last month, we have also identified some of the countries with higher risks of infection, and we have banned and restricted the issuing of visas as well as reduced the number of direct flights. And also they are mandated to also comply with the mandatory self-quarantine measures, and they also need to get a health documents, and they also need to verify there is a place of stay in Korea as well. And lately, we also have intensified our quarantine measures at all ports nationwide, and we are carrying out physical and on-board quarantine measures for all of the ships docking in the ports of South Korea. And the government is seeking more intensified measures as well. And starting from July 13th, all of the foreigners coming into Korea from all of these countries that have been designated as high-risk countries need to submit a PCR negative document within 48 hours of entry. And starting from yesterday, the capacity of the passenger flights to these countries will be limited to about 60%, and we will be restricting our direct flights. And we will be also on a real-time monitor of the global cases and global outbreak, and we will also decrease the number of direct flights accordingly. And as for the countries that also need special care and special monitoring, we will make sure that on these sites and in these countries, we have a strict monitoring of the people who are onboarding flights bound for South Korea. And we will continue to also monitor the risk conditions as well going forward. And next, we have some measures to intensify quarantine measures for those on self-quarantine. Up until now, the central government has utilized the GPS as well as the dashboard and the self-diagnosis app, and we have been systemizing our measures against the self-quarantine people. However, we have found some loopholes, and we will be revising them going forward. First, we will intensify our measures to prohibit the people on self-quarantine from leaving the country. And starting from July 8th, we have been designating a system, and we have carried out a 24-hour hotline system together with the Ministry of Immigration as well. And we will be prohibiting and curbing the people from leaving these countries when they are under self-quarantine. And if the local governments deem their leave of the country as essential, including measures like attending funerals and so forth, we will temporarily ease their restrictions. And we will be also revamping our measures to also provide supplementation by intensifying our training and education for the government officials. And we believe that this is a very important pledge for the society to keep the society safe as a whole. And we also will have stern measures as for those who violate these quarantine measures. And the next are some updates on our social welfare services as well as these facilities of care for the handicapped people. And starting from June, we have also mandated all of the social welfare services facilities to go on a temporary closure. And right now, about 75% of these facilities nationwide are on closure. However, with the prolonged closure of these services, the social care for the handicapped people as well as for the elderly people are also having a great loophole. And starting from the 20th of July, we will be preparing for a partial reopening of these social welfare facilities by considering and monitoring the societal and community outbreak. And starting from July 13th, we will have a week of preparation for each of the local governments, and they need to carry out an on-site inspection for these social welfare facilities. And as for regional and local care centers for children that are very small in scale, they will be only carried out with operation on a limited basis. And we believe that these facilities will be reopened at places and at provinces with a level 1 of distancing. And if the level of distancing increases to level 2 or 3, these facilities need to also be on a halt. And on top of this, with the prolonged COVID-19, we will aim to alleviate the burdens on these families of the disabled. And as for the holiday season, we will temporarily provide about 20 hours of services for the students with disabilities, and we will also provide our psychological mental consultations for the families with disabled children. And we will also provide incentives for these families going forward. And the government will carry out strict quarantine measures and carry out routine monitoring and inspection so that we can limit the infections among the social welfare facilities, and we will make sure that there are no further infections at these facilities going forward. And starting from 6 p.m. today, all of the churches nationwide will be mandated to comply with core quarantine measures. And thanks to the participation and the compliance with the quarantine measures by the many religious circles, we have been able to curb a large widespread massive outbreak, and we would like to thank you for this cooperation. However, we have been witnessing some sporadic outbreaks in the small religious group meetings. Therefore, we found the need to place such policies. It is not about designating churches as high-risk facilities. However, limiting all of the gatherings, events, and meals aside from regular services, because these social gatherings are prone to infections, and we will be easing these bans on gathering if there are no infections. And as this weekend is the beginning of such a policy, we ask for your continued cooperation and participation. So we ask all of the churches to postpone and cancel gatherings, events, and meals, and please refrain from activities that engage in high respiratory droplets travel, and please also utilize the QR entry codes as well. These are not only related to the churches as well, but it's also targeted for the wider public, and we ask all the members of the public to comply with the quarantine measures during the weekend. In Gwangju and Daejeon cities, we are seeing sporadic outbreaks, especially in these non-metropolitan areas, and therefore we ask for the continued cooperation from the public. We believe that a day of complacency can transform a month of our routine daily lives. Thank you very much.
네, 지금부터 질의응답 시간을 가지겠습니다. 배석자분들은
That was Yoon Tae-ho, Director General of Public Health Policy, who just updated us on the COVID-19 situation in South Korea. As we heard, there were 45 new cases today, bringing the total to 13,338. There was one additional death, bringing the total to 288. That wraps up our coverage of the briefing this morning. Thank you for staying with us. We will be back with our regular newscast at 12 p.m. Korea time. Goodbye.